Welcome to our Professional Insights podcast. I'm Laurie Scher. I'm an active member of Dementia Action Alliance. Today I have the privilege of interviewing Jaqueline Garrick. Ms. Garrick is a policy and program expert with 30 years of service to the military and veteran community. She was a political appointee at the Pentagon for 8 years, setting up personnel programs for wounded warriors and the Defense Suicide Prevention Office. Prior to that, she worked for the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, Disability Assistance, and Memorial Affairs Subcommittee, drafting legislation to assist disabled veterans and their families. She is a former Army social work officer who has used her clinical knowledge to inform her advocacy and intervention work with the American Legion and is the Deputy Director for Healthcare and then with the Veterans Disability Benefits Commission. She has several prestigious awards, including the Lincoln Award and a Secretary of Defense Medal for exceptional public service. Ms. Garrick has published many books and several articles, has appeared worldwide as a health and resilience expert. She founded the FAR Group after 9/11 and continues to offer consulting services. She is also the founder of Whistleblowers of America, providing peer support to those suffering from retaliation. She holds a Master of Social Work from Temple University. Ms. Garrick, thank you for joining our Dementia Action Alliance Professional Insights podcast. You certainly have an impressive background, and we're looking forward to sharing your expertise.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be able to do this today because this to me is a very important topic, and I'm happy to be able to provide you and your audience with some thoughts on dementia in the military veterans community and some of the things that have been important to us.
Thank you. Well, to get started, I'm sure what people, I think the first thing people would want to know is, what are some of the key benefits that veterans and their families should be aware of from the Department of Veteran Affairs, especially what benefits are out there as they relate to dementia?
Okay, no, that's a great place to start. And it's a little bit more complicated because a lot of what we do in the veterans community is look at conditions and first establish whether or not they are service-connected disabled. So before someone could be service-connected or have a disability recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs, there's always this nexus to service that you need first. So most veterans are going to be service-connected for illnesses or injuries that were incurred or aggravated by service. So that's the first step. And then the VA will rate the disability and assign a level of disability. And the VA rating schedule runs in increments of like 10%. So you can start with being 10%, 20%, 30%, all the way up to 100% service-connected disabled. And that service connection and that level of disability is important because that will determine what benefits the veteran is eligible for. The other way to be eligible for benefits from the VA besides being disabled is to be indigent. And they do provide a level of benefit for veterans living below the poverty line, homeless veterans, and incompetent veterans. So there are certain benefits that are available based on that level of disability. And I'll be happy to go into those at length if you're ready for me to just kind of drive on. Okay. So once you've established your level of service-connected disability, and it could be for things like arthritis, back pain, those conditions we know are going to worsen as you age. The other conditions and the things that I wanted to really focus on with you today are things like post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, so PTSD, TBI, those things, those cognitive challenges, whether they're psychologically based or neurologically based, are in some of the literature we're beginning to see where those are the precursors for dementia. And you may have a veteran who has never had a PTSD symptom. They're World War II vet, they've never had PTSD, they weren't diagnosed with a TBI, but we know that as people age, those symptoms may appear, especially if they've been now diagnosed with dementia. Because when you have sort of that change in cognitive functioning, and then you may go through a life altering, you're retiring, you've lost your spouse, your social structure is changing, sometimes just moving and becoming in an unfamiliar environment, those become triggers for PTSD. And then we've seen where people with brain injury may not even know they've had a brain injury. I mean, it's only this new Iraq, Afghanistan generation that has really brought a lot of attention to the trauma of the brain. In the past, we used to say, oh, we got his bell rung, to shake it off, walk it off. So we didn't know a lot about head injury. And what we're learning from this population and some of the studies we're doing now and being able to look back, a lot of the things like concussion and head trauma were caused by shock waves from loud explosions, loud noise. So exposure to artillery, when you're out on the battlefield, it's an extremely noisy environment. So working around helicopters, loud equipment, these are all things. And I was recently reading a study about tinnitus, which is the #1 service-connected condition for veterans going to the VA, because that's the most common, is that ringing in the ears. So if you've had ringing in the ears, you may have had a head injury, and you just don't have any other symptoms of the head injury, but you have this ringing in the ears and you're service-connected for the tinnitus. It could be that if you open up the aperture, you'll find out that there is more to that condition than meets the eye. And so those are the things I think we need veterans and family members and clinicians who are treating these folks to be mindful of, is that there's more of a comorbidity to some of these conditions. And I say all of that because those are the conditions that you're going to be service connected for, that you're going to maybe go to the VA for, or should go to the VA for, and establish your eligibility. And I always tell people, do it as soon as you can. Don't wait till you need long-term care to try to be service connected. Yeah.
So if I'm a veteran or my loved one is a veteran, how do I start this process? I mean, how do I access those benefits? It sounds like, how do I determine what level I'm at, and where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah, those are great questions. So it all begins with, and usually a lot of the education begins through the veteran service organizations, the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Disabled American Veterans, the Paralyzed American Veterans, AMVETS, the Vietnam Vets of America. There are all of these service organizations, and they are really accredited to help family members and veterans sort through these benefits. The VA at va.gov has a lot of this information online, but not everybody is tech savvy, so it might not necessarily be the most accessible, and you may want to sit down and talk to somebody. You can look up any of those service organizations, and they can walk through, like, what are the benefits. I mean, for the most part, everybody knows that in most communities, there are VA hospitals. There are now these community-based outpatient clinics, so you don't necessarily have to drive all the way to the hospital. The VA is using a lot of telehealth, telemedicine, so that a veteran who is in the community doesn't have to go drive 100 miles to get to a hospital. They can maybe do that closer to home. So those are huge benefits. In some areas, they have home-based care where a nurse will actually visit you in your home. So those are important services. And then the medical centers, many of them have long-term care facilities, nursing homes. And those that are eligible could be placed in a nursing home. They also offer respite care at those facilities. So if you are a caregiver and you need to take a vacation or go do something else, you can have somebody evaluated for respite care at one of those facilities. Yeah.
Wow, that I didn't realize that they do all that. If I am a veteran and I'm diagnosed with dementia, whatever type, whether it's Alzheimer's or
Mhm.
or whatever, does it have to be related to my service in order for me to receive veteran benefits?
So that can depend on what you might or might not be service connected for. In some cases, if there was like a pre-existing condition, you could say that it was aggravated by the service connected condition is what got you into your your current physical state. If a veteran is 70% service connected or more, they are entitled to a full plethora of VA benefits just because they're now over a certain threshold of disability status. If you're 30% or more, you're entitled to a compensation for your spouse as well. So there's an added dependence pay for those that are 30% service connected, disabled, or more. And then if your service connected condition is related to your being housebound, bedridden, then there are things like aid and attendance as a benefit and caregiver programs that actually will pay your spouse or your child. Congress just passed the Mission Act. That will be the new benefit. It used to be caregiver allowances were only for the 9/11 generation, but now they're going to backdate that so that older veterans are now also, their spouses are eligible for the caregiver program. So that's a huge new step. And those benefits, I think, are helpful. And it may take a minute to find out what you're eligible for. You can walk into a VA medical center and get a VA ID card. And I always encourage everybody to do that. If you're a veteran, at least get the ID card, at least enroll so that the VA has some situational awareness of who you are and what's going on with you. And if you do have medical conditions, and I've had people tell me over and over, oh, I was never sick or injured in the service. And I've said, well, let's get your medical record. And sure enough, we'll find out they were hospitalized for something. They were knocked out. They had a concussion, and they don't even remember that that's in their medical record because maybe it happened 20 years ago, and they're just not remembering that they had this medical record. So I always encourage people to look at and try to find out what their benefits are.
Is the VA available only for people that served in a war? If you were serving in the United States, are you also eligible for VA benefits?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a service-connected disabled veteran. I never served in a combat zone, but because of my medical issues and things that happened to me while I was in the Army, I was able to get service-connected for some of the illnesses that I had because I was treated for them while I was on active duty. So it's as simple as that. And oh, by the way, I always encourage people to remember that females are veterans in many cases as well. So sometimes the spouse is the veteran as well as the person coming in for care. And providers need to know to ask both husband and wife, are you a veteran?
Wow, that you are just such a wealth of information. I'm so happy that we were able to have you on and you agreed to come on and enlighten us. Is there anything that I've neglected to ask you that you would want to share with the audience for our people that are veterans that would be helpful?
So I always like to make people feel like there's all kinds of help available. There are 4,500 different types of veteran-focused organizations that offer support and benefits. If you're not eligible for VA, There's all kinds of other, like Easter Seals has programs. They have a adult daycare programs. There's many things that might be right in your community that are very specific. It might take looking around and trying to find them. There's 800, the call center for the Veterans Crisis Line. I always encourage people to remember the 800-273-8255 number. That's the crisis line. Whether you're suicidal or just having a bad day, they're there to help you sort that out. So, and the VA has several other call-in lines, but there's always a source for help. There are all these other nonprofits. There are state veteran affairs offices, so states sometimes have benefits unique to each state. Counties, cities, there's always different levels of benefits, and many people are out there who want to help a veteran.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all your valuable information today and your knowledge to help those living through this dementia journey. I also want to thank you on behalf of myself and Dementia Action Alliance for your service, and to all you other veterans, thank you for serving. We so appreciate what you've done for us. Thank you to all our viewers. If you enjoyed our Professional Insights podcast, please subscribe to our channel and share it with others. Thank you. Have a great day.
Beyond dementia, connecting our lives to help us survive, so we live.